Welcome to the first and hopefully continuation of the Requel podcast. As some of you might have known, I've done this podcast before with people, but then it just kind of became me pitching, and my goal is to invite people out and discuss film series. And the purpose of this podcast is we take a property and we talk about it like, what would I do for a sequel or a prequel or a remake or a sidequel or a requel, whatever, and then we pitch it to each other. And as you know, like I am a screenwriter or aspiring screenwriter, don't always what term. So I thought I'd call upon my friend from school who we have pitched ideas and talked about our work with each other. And I'll let him introduce himself. Go ahead.
Hello, everybody. My name is Corey. Most people know me as PC. That's what I went through when I was in school and everything. Friends call me Corey. I did go to school with Tyler and studied MFA in writing for motion pictures and television. Since then, I have continued on my screenwriting journey. I currently have a short film that was produced that hit the festival circuit this year called Clara's Box.
Nice.
Being developed into a feature film, which I just finished writing. That will be called Clara's Gambit. And I have another feature film that producers are looking at now called Unseen Captivity. So I have a lot of stuff, hopefully, that people will be seeing in the near future. And like Tyler, I absolutely love horror movies, and especially excited about this franchise that we were about to talk about now because it is one of my favorites.
Yep. So that's what Corey and I bonded over in school, was our like for certain films. And what franchise kind of do we bond over but Scream? And that was kind of been a staple of our friendship. And so when we're talking about this, with the recent announcements, I mean, it's been a little bit, but it's still pretty recent, of what will be Scream 7 and who's in it. We thought we'd just talk about it and kind of pitch some ideas and, kind of just go from there in a fun setting. So that's what we're here to discuss today. Just a quick background, Corey. Which Scream movie is your favorite?
The original has to be, without a question, without a doubt, the original. If you want me to list them in order, I can gladly do that for you. It is going to be one. This is going to be order from favorite to least favorite. It is going to be one, two. Now we're probably going to get into some controversy here. After two, we're going to have four. Then we're going to have six. Then we're going to have five. Then we're going to have three. So 1, 2, 4, 6, 5, 3.
I think you're about the same as me. I'm pulling mine up because I do all these lists on Letterboxd. It's kind of an obsession I do with making lists and everything. I'm going to what my last rankings were. So, yeah, exactly. The only difference is I sometimes go back between 1 and 2 as my favorite. But part of it is you don't get to 2 without 1. But I think 2 has some more fun and tropey stuff in it because it is the sequel, and it gets a little bit more meta because it's the sequel and the rules of the sequel. And of course the reveal of Debbie Salt is a little bit more fun. So I have a love for 2, but I love the first one, so depending on the day and my mood, those 2 can go back and forth for me. But then, 4 is my next favorite. So that's my number 3, and then 6 is 4, 5 is 5, and 3 is 6.
I go back and forth between 5 and 3, actually. I actually do need to probably revisit 3 again, because part of me thinks that if I were to revisit the third one, I would put it above 5. Part of me, like a very, very small part, actually, not a very large part. But without revisiting the third one here lately, I have revisited 5 and 6 very recently, actually. So without me revisiting the third one recently, I have to put it at the bottom.
See, it's hard because when you learn about the production of 3 and how they changed things and how they rejected the first pitch, and they went even more meta. There's cool things in 3.
Yes.
But then you learn like, oh, Nev wasn't available, so they had to, make it a little bit more Gale driven, and then you learn they had to tone down the violence because of Columbine, because this is right after, this is 2000, and it was pushed. It was supposed to be in '99, so it kind of still is a '90s movie, but it was pushed to what, February of 2000, off the top of my head. It sounds right. So you can see those things, and it really kind of hinders what this movie was going for and what it could have been. And then like Scream 4, I think, and I will stand by this, I say Scream 4 was too ahead of its time. At the time of its release, about everyone living online and live streaming, that wasn't as much of a stuff as it is now.
I agree completely. They definitely jumped the gun on that whole approach. And four gets, I think, more hate from people than what it deserves.
I agree. And since when 5 was coming out, I rewatched the whole series. When 6 was coming out, I rewatched the whole series. And I've come to like 4 more and more.
Yeah.
My issues with 4 are basically, I think there's some with the editing, there's a few things with just keeping some things straight with the editing. And then there's some funny things they talk about where the knife is actually like digital. And I think 4 has a couple scenes a little bit more gory. But then my issue with 4 really is in the post, when they change the opening, and then there's some deleted scenes that I have to go back to. I think that were really good that they cut out. And then there's a scene in the film where they show footage like on a phone that's actually from a scene that was deleted in the alternate opening. So there's just some stuff in there that I feel like when it came to the editing process, because at this time with 4, Wes was not using Patrick Lussier, who was his editor, had gone on to be a director. So he was not using him as an editor. And I feel like you kind of feel that, like when you get a good editor and director team, when that changes, you can kind of feel that.
Yeah, the editing is so important for every film, especially horror, really. And if you don't have
Yes.
the edit in place, then it can really destroy what would otherwise be a really good movie. And I think that I mean, just a casual watcher is not going to notice a lot of editing issues, but once you've studied film and you're a film buff or anything like that, then you're really going to start to pay attention to all aspects of it. And editing is, to me, and just like you said, it's crucial. It's so important. I mean, it's right up there with I'm not going to say it is as important as the story, because of course you have to have a solid story and great characters that you want to get behind and follow them on their journey. All need with editing. I did like the opening of Scream 4. I thought. Let me think for a second, real quick. I found it to be the weakest opening of the 6, personally.
Yeah, it is.
It didn't work. Now, what I liked, and you and I had talked about this also, 6. When I went to see 6 at the theater, the first time I saw it, I think that I messaged you in terms of opening and told you I just didn't like the opening at all. Like, I think I was pretty vocal about not enjoying the Samara Weaving opening. And then I went back and watched it, and I never messaged you after it. But after I watched it a second time, I said, you know what? I like this opening. They did a good job with this.
They completely
Considering
throw
we're in
you
New York
off.
and not in. Yes, completely. Was not expecting that.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, for years, we're gonna spoil the crap. So if you've never seen Scream movies, like, you shouldn't be listening to us. But for years I have said, like, I wanted a twist in a Scream movie with 3 killers. But I wanted one of the killers to be working independently. And kind of when the killings start, they have their own agenda and they're not working with the other 2 killers. So in this movie, in Scream 6, when they pop up with 3 killers, I was like, sweet. I was like, but technically Scream 6 has 4 killers,
5.
but
No, yeah, because
I mean,
wasn't
he
yeah,
was going to have a partner. He was going to have a partner, but the partner
yeah,
hadn't done anything yet.
yeah.
So
So
I I don't count the 5th guy because he was just a planner. He hadn't actually done anything because he says he jumped the gun. He went ahead with it. But we technically have 4 killers.
I remember seeing that, and you were the first person that came to mind when I was watching that in the theaters. I was like, he's going to be so excited. He's going to be so excited, especially when we got to the killer's reveal. Um, and my cousin, I went to see it with my cousin. He's a huge Scream fan. And when we went in, and of course we got like this, I don't know about your theater, but ours had the Scream collector cups with like the different ghost face toppers of them.
Nice.
Did you have that?
No, the
So
theater
we
that's closest to
collected.
us is more of an indie mom and pop style theater, like local theater. And
Okay.
I went, so when it came out, I went and saw it. And then the next night, my mother-in-law took the kids, and Janine and I were out, and she was up to go see it with me. She's not a horror fan per se, but she'll watch these with me. So her and I went and saw it. I saw it a second time the next night.
Yeah, he called it right when he saw the Scream toppers because there was 3 different versions of Ghostface and different poses um, for the collector's cups, and he immediately called it. He said there's going to be 3 killers. So why do you think that? He's different Ghostface top collector cups. I was like, no, you're crazy. No, there's not. And then when, of course, the reveal comes, he was like, I told you so. I told you so. I'm like, all right, good call. Didn't even think about that. Didn't pay attention to that. By the way, not meaning to like bounce around and stuff, but I absolutely love the reveal for Scream 6. I love that. I know a lot of people didn't like it. I liked it.
I didn't mind it. Okay. And I'll say this. What I wish had been different with the reveal in Scream 6 is there's a line that the detective says where he's like, um, I never cared for them. They were a little too dark for me. I think what they should have done is the dad being a cop, because we can kind of assume that he's actually a real cop. Okay. And that he
Mm-hmm.
used his real cop to get transferred and hide information or whatever. Okay. But
Yeah,
what I think should have
evidence.
worked is the dad was obsessed with the Woodsboro murders as a cop and a lover of true crime, and the son was obsessed with the stab films. So they bonded over this entity. Like it was something they bonded over. Like some people bond over baseball. Like, you always hear about father-son relationships where we never got along, but when it came to baseball or when it came to, race cars or whatever, that was something that we had together. That could have been that, like this series, the son in love with the films and the father in love with the true crime is what they bonded over, instead of making the father seem like he wasn't his thing. That's where I think they messed up.
Yeah, that could have been a great opportunity to show like your father and son bonding moment as
Because you got to
well.
have something a little bit. Go ahead.
What was the sisters? What was it? She was just
Just
upset,
family.
right? I mean, she was just family. Yeah, she didn't really have anything um, into it. She really, and the same thing with the brother. They were just family and avenging their brother's death best that they could. The only thing that I didn't like about Scream 6 as far as the reveal goes is, and it's kind of hard to pull off to change it because the shrine, the Ghostface shrine that we get in Scream 6, I thought was amazing. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw that in the trailer, myself, along with everybody that I know that I talked to about these films, immediately said, well, one of the killers has to be a cop immediately, because that's going to be the only person realistically that would have access to evidence like that. So then
Mm-hmm.
watching Scream 6, you're immediately then left with, okay, well, one of the killers has to be either Kirby or the detective. I knew it wasn't going to be Kirby because I definitely didn't think that the creators would do that to Kirby. I think that they would have gotten tons of backlash by doing that to her because she's a fan favorite. We all love Kirby. So I
Yes.
just immediately was movie saying, "Oh, well, it's the detective. He's somehow they're going to be involved in it," because I know it's not Kurt. Sure enough, it was him. But the other two, I was surprised by, and what I liked about them having three killers in the sixth screen is that it really did a good job of throwing you off on who the killer was. Because while they were at the park, I think they were at the park, right? And then Mindy, somebody was, no, Gail. Yeah, I'm sorry, Gail at her penthouse. Gail was being attacked at the penthouse. The sister was allegedly already dead, and then the other was at the park. So you immediately have all these characters in the film that are accounted for. Yet Gail is being attacked in her penthouse. And I remember watching that, and I was like, I'm confused now. I'm genuinely confused because all of our characters are here or are dead. So who's attacking Gail?
Yeah. And so the other thing with 6 that I would have done, okay, since this is kind of what we do in this podcast, is if you watch the movie, there's someone who's never mentioned, and I'll explain. So one thing that made me mad in Scream 6 was Chad should have died. Like originally Chad was supposed to die in 5. Like I read the script, like Chad was supposed to die in 5. So Chad and Mindy, one of them had to go. And Mindy getting stabbed like on the train, she should have died. But if they're not, so let's just say that Mindy dies on the train. Okay. If she didn't, we should have gotten a scene at the end of them going to visit Chad in the hospital. And Chad's there, and like you have a nurse like checking his chart, and he's talking about, and he's on the phone like with Tara, and they're like, "Yeah, we're pulling up. We'll be up in a minute." And they hang up, right? And Chad like just takes a deep breath, rolls over, and then the nurse just like stabs him in the chest and leaves because the character that's never mentioned is the mom.
That's true. Like, I thought about that.
They never mentioned, like, after I saw it the first time, okay, like I had this thought, and then I watched it again. I looked in the dialogue. Well, when I watched it at home, because I turned on the captions, because I was like, there's no mention of Richie's mom. So I'm like, the fact that they're doing this as a family, that leaves one person out there. And I was like, wouldn't that have been a twist if Richie's mom gets the last kill and it's Chad? You know what I'm saying? Like, because, and then she gets away with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, she is the killer that gets away.
And she's like, for the first killer that actually escaped is unaccounted for. I'd never thought about the mom issue. I definitely, that was one thing that frustrated me, is I definitely think that Chad should have died in 5. And I think that Mindy should have most definitely died in 6. I get what they were going for with introducing the core 4 and carrying on the franchise with this new group, sort of like they had with Sidney, Gale, and Dewey. But of course, now their whole plans of the core 4 are gone after Barrera's firing and Ortega quitting. So now it's interesting to see. It's at the same time because they had this clear direction plan for Sam and Tara and Chad and Mindy, and that's completely gone.
Yeah. Jumping back real quick to Scream 4, I wanted to say this because this is something that bothers me, and this is kind of going to roll into what we're going to pitch. But one of my issues is Scream 4 is all of a sudden we have Sydney's aunt, who is her mother's sister. But and I hate when they force characters in that have no reference points.
Yeah.
If there had been some dialogue about, we moved back to Woodsboro, after the incident from the first Scream movie, okay, I would have taken that. But I just don't like the idea that she had an aunt. So when Sydney was out of town, when the events of the first film were happening, where was that aunt? Like she went to Dewey's house and stayed with Tatum and Dewey. She shouldn't have been alone. She should have been at her aunt's, So I hate when they try to bring in this character like, oh, Sydney's mom had a sister. That's great. If you give me some dialogue like, well, we moved back to Woodsboro after, the first killings happened. Cool. That sets me up because part of the whole story of Scream 4 is Jill living in Woodsboro in Sydney's shadow as Sydney's cousin. So I hate when they force characters. But
And it doesn't take no. Please don't force characters in any film ever. Anybody that's a writer that's listening to this, if you take literally only one thing away from the podcast when you end it, don't force anything. Don't force character. Don't force story. Don't literally let every single thing happen organically, and feel like you're forcing, then you are forcing it.
Like Billy's mom being a killer in the second film. They talk about Billy's mom in the first movie. We never see her, but she's mentioned, you know? So there's logical sense to that. And then in the Scream 3, you know, the half brother thing, that makes sense. Like it works, you know, and like the meta, like if you really look at like the Scream's a meta take on things, like it works, kind of like what they do with Halloween, you know. And like I said, I think Scream 3 is just so interesting because there were supposed to be two killers, and there's certain scenes that still kind of work like there's two killers, but in the end they made it, you know, canonical as only one. So
it definitely played out like there were there were two killers in it. It played out very well like there were two killers in it, and I thought that it would be you know, even with the reveal as Roman, I kept thinking that there was going to be another one pop up, and we never got it. 3 for me was just
sanitized.
It just felt all over the. I get what they were trying to do, but it played out very well. And then there was like some issues that I had with 5. Is I really wanted to love 5. I did. But nothing about the characters, including Chad, Mindy, Wes, and the other ones, I can't remember. Chad, Mindy, Wes, Richie, Amber, and then I don't remember her name. They didn't feel like they were actually friends. Do you remember how, like, in the original film, the conversations at the school between Tatum and Sydney and Billy and those, it felt real. It felt natural. The conversations with these friends and 5, it just didn't seem like they were friends to me. I found myself asking myself, why are these people hanging out with one another? They don't actually seem like friends.
See, and that would work if it was the relationships were like you had Tara and Mindy as like the friends, but then Chad gets tangentially pulled in because he's the brother.
Right.
You know, and then he brings his girlfriend, and you have Amber. Well, in the original script, I want to say that Amber was actually Tara's girlfriend, but they cut around that and cut that subplot out. And I still think it's kind of evident when you watch the movie that was supposed to be in there. So it was kind of like the boyfriend and girlfriend of both sisters. You know what I'm saying? Of sisters, doing the killings.
Actually, because that works. It makes sense. I actually preferred the script for Scream 5 so much more than the film. So much more.
It's one of those things where you're just like, why would you change that? In Scream 5, I really like. This is an editing thing. I think the death of Wes and his mom.
There we go.
Could have been edited tighter to where I have to remember everything in my head like she arrives as he's being killed or something, or she's getting stabbed on the front as he walks to the door. Like, just make it a little bit tighter, you know? I think would just amp up that scene, because that's one of the better scenes of that film.
Yes. It was the one scene that stands out to me in that movie, and what I liked about the script so much more was that Wes's death is longer. Like, there's an actual chase scene, and we actually see that his character makes sense being the child of a sheriff. Like, there's I don't know how long it's been since you read the script, but if If you remember,
It's been a little while. It's been a while.
There's a gun. He tries to get the gun. So reading that scene, it was just so much better because it just made more sense considering that his mom is the sheriff and he's the child of a sheriff. And I liked Wes. Wes was probably my favorite character out of the new ones that were introduced in the fifth one, and I just wanted so much more. That's why I prefer it in the script versus the film, because they actually did so much changed it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they actually even just didn't work, or if they just got and said, "Yeah, we're gonna do this." But the only version of the script that I ever read was Wes's death was completely different. There was like a nice chase scene in the house, and he's trying to get the gun out of a lockbox and everything.
See, and I like that they brought Judy back from the fourth. She's the only returning character from the fourth movie. There is a tidbit in there about that Kirby survives. Like it's a little like Easter egg that's in that movie. And that was something Wes said that he wanted to do in Scream 4 and wish he had shot the Kirby surviving scene. Kind of like how Dewey was dead in Scream 1, but then they made him like breathe and kind of move at the end so that he could live. And the one thing that kind of is a little confusing, okay, maybe you can help me track with this. In Scream 5, they mentioned that Stab 8 has come out, and it's supposed to be like the reboot of Stab, okay? And it's a horrible film. Like it's bad. It's really bad. And they make a comment about Wes. They make a comment about Sydney threatening if they made any of the movies off her and her story. But then they make a comment later that Wes is like the child of one of the characters and that was in a Stab movie. So then I was like, well, the only Stab movie Judy could have been a character would have been Stab 8. And I'm like, so because Stab 8 wasn't supposed to be based on the events of Scream 4 because Sydney was threatening to sue. So I just felt that was a little murky.
Yeah, I don't. I would have to go back and watch it. It's been a while since I've seen the fourth one. I don't recall. So the most seen were 1, 5, and 6. Those were the 3 most recent ones that I've seen.
But I'm saying like it's referenced in 5. I'd have to pull up the scene where they're talking about it, of why they stopped making the Stab movies and how, Sydney threatened to sue them if they basically made a movie for the Stab franchise of the events of 4. So it gets a little muddy of when exactly Wes's mom would have been a character in a Stab movie and why they would use her for Stab 8, which they talk about supposed to be like a horrible film, its own thing. And the last thing I want to say about Scream 5 is, well, I guess this probably won't be the last thing, but I wish they hadn't killed Phil's nephew off as like the first kill, like after the big opening, like, or not Phil. What's his name? His name was Phil. Stu Macher's nephew. Was his name Phil? Why am I getting Phil? Where's that coming from? I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking about something else. But Stu Macher's nephew, like, I think he should have been a character that stayed around for a little while as this outlier that kind of gets pulled in because he is a survivor and he is a potential killer or victim. I just think that was a really good idea that every Scream movie starts with a pattern and then that pattern gets broken after like 1 or 2 kills. You notice that?
Yeah, it does. It does. Did you like the talking about opening kills in Scream? What did you think about the opening for the 5th one?
It was brutal. I think that was the first thing. Like there were some shots I really liked about it. It was brutal. It was a little weird because they're like, I don't know how many people would actually, like kids would stay on the phone. Like they would just hang up right away. I do think it's weird that we never meet or have any kind of contact with Tara's mom. Tara and Sam's mom. Like there's never a scene of her like trying to get home from the airport. Like, I mean, even in Scream, like we wrote out Sydney's dad, but we met Sydney's dad,
We met him.
So when he's like leaving on a trip, okay, You know, like there's reason, but you know, her mom is gone. Her daughter's in the hospital. And like, you know, the events for these are always like within 2, maybe 3 days. So they're always, you know, the night for the opening kill, and then maybe within a day or two, like everything's resolved. Um, so there's nothing with like really we interact. Like I think there's like phone conversation with trying to get a hold of mom or get mom back, you know, when Sam's there with Tara. But I just felt like that was something that was missing that just kind of made it feel even more off. But the opening kill, it was brutal, and I think it needed to be, you know, new era, because part of what makes the Scream movies interesting, you know, yes, they're a slasher and there's only, you know, you're using knives and you get creative, is the mystery angle and the meta commentary. And that's why, see, I don't even remember Richie's character. I thought was interesting because some of his dialogue, and I can't remember exactly about the movies, I think is ironic coming from an actor whose both of his parents are like A-list celebrities that were, you know, huge celebrities in their day. So he is a Nepo baby playing this character of someone who's in love with the movies, talking about Hollywood, a commentary. And I thought that was kind of like, if you know, an interesting casting choice as well, you know, like him. And, you know, when I saw the film with my buddy, he's like, he's the killer. And I was like, nah, man, because that's too obvious. Like, but yeah, it
Yeah,
ended up being him.
I never
I was just
picked
like,
up.
son of a gun.
I never picked up on Richie as one of the killers. Amber, not Amber. Jill. I picked up on her closer towards the end, um, but I never once suspected Richie. You know, maybe a passing thought or anything. I actually never once. I think the only film I've never figured out who all the killers were in any of the films. I think probably the most surprised that I had been would we. I think that Billy's mom, in the second one really shook me. I thought that was a
Yeah,
great reveal in the second one.
because she already has a dual identity as Debbie Salt. So you're like, oh, Debbie Salt. Okay.
Yeah,
Then it's like, it's Billy's mom. And then you're like, oh, boom. Like, I think that's why probably the Mickey was kind of obvious. When you go back and watch it a second time, you're like, okay,
yeah,
Mickey's kind of obvious. But Debbie Salt as Billy's mom, nope, that's probably the best killer reveal other than the idea that there were two killers in Scream 1.
yeah. I mean, we can't neglect just the idea that Craven and Williamson had with the first one with two killers, which I thought was a brilliant job for them because that completely caught me off guard. But other than that, other than the reveal that hey, there's been two killers in this film the entire time, it would be Billy's mom's reveal. Even the shot of Gail walking up on stage, not yeah, Gail walking up on stage, and Sydney looking at Gail in the film and immediately assuming, "Oh, Gail, it's you." And then you get Debbie Salt coming in behind her with the gun, and he was like, "Oh shoot!" I love that shot.
Or I love that one, and I love the subtlety with Cotton, where you're like, Cotton might align himself with Debbie, and then Sydney's like, that interview done, and he fires.
Yeah,
Like, um, you're not really sure where he's aligning himself. You know, like you're not sure where to go um, with his character. So that's kind of us talking around it. Now, the last thing was we're going to segue into our pitching is what's interesting about this series is as of right now, it kind of exists where you have 1 through 3 as a trilogy. 4 is kind of this epilogue outlier film. And then 5 and 6 are this duology. And then 7, what will it become? You know, that's a conversation for another day. So it is a very interesting, there's connective tissue, you know, throughout. But they definitely wanted to start something new with 5, 6, and the 7 that we'll never see. Um, so my first thing I'm going to say is I have a pitch that doesn't work anymore, but I'm just going to throw it out there. My original pitch, I had this idea. So it was going to be, I don't know, when I had this idea was before Scream 4, but I guess it would have been Scream 5, but whatever. Like this has been my opening. It would have been where you have Gail at home and Dewey at work, and they're on the phone talking to each other, and then they hang up, and then one calls back, and then the killer's talking to one of them, talking to say Gail, right? And um what they do is they three-way Dewey in. So you have a three-way call and the killer sitting there talking about what Gail's doing. Okay. And then you have like Dewey getting together and he goes to run out the front door and the killer pops out and just cuts his throat. And then Gail listens to Dewey die over the phone. It was basically like the idea of the staging, so you have them hear each other. You have the idea that somehow the killer's watching Gail, but the killer's there where Dewey is. So the whole time you think Gail's in danger, but it really was Dewey. So, and that would have been taking it back to, oh crap, they killed a main character. Because in every movie, you think about like the first movie, they kill Casey, which we don't expect because it's Drew Barrymore. In the second movie, we kill people we don't care about. We just met them. Third movie, we kill off Cotton because we got to kill off someone who's coming back, and who else we got, because by that time the main three were so locked in. And then Randy dies in the second movie. So my thought was, if you started the film with two of your returning characters, all of a sudden your tension is dialed up because one of them's going to go, but you're not sure which one's going to go. And that would have been the catalyst for Tyler's Scream 5. So, or Scream 4, depending on when, what I'm saying? Just because I feel like there needs to be stakes. Okay. And having the idea that Sydney, Gail, and Dewey survive these so many times, and Dewey's the only one that ever walks out with scars.
Mm-hmm.
But all right. So now what we're going to do is kind of pitch where we are with Scream 7. So I'm going to let you go first. I've been talking, and we're going to pitch our ideas. And then in the comments, I want people to leave which pitch by who they like better. And then of course we'll talk about our ideas and whatever, but I'll let you go first.
So I just actually, like I talked to you before, hopping on this, I changed my opening. I didn't change. The only thing I've changed just today while driving was the opening. It just came to me while I was driving to the gym.
Sweet.
So, and that's actually how I do most of my best thinking, is when I'm driving or when I'm working out.
Doesn't that suck at time?
It does. It's awful. Like I'll be driving and I'm just like, oh, I've got this great idea for the script that I'm working on, or what I would do differently. And let me record myself, or let me see if I can remember it. But so going into, let me lead with this. Going into 7 is going to be kind of tricky because you've built the last 2 films around the core 4. And as we know, that no longer exists. However, I would, if it were me, I would open in New York. We're still in New York after part 6. This is going to be the only time that we're going to be in New York. And we are going to open with Chad and Mindy. I still think that we need to bring them back because I do not want to see them referenced through dialogue, and I do not want to have them referenced any other way. Like we had Chad and Mindy are there and in New York together, roommates, finishing up college. They are both murdered by Ghostface. At this point, we find out that Tam and Sarah are already dead. I don't want to use the in hiding approach because we've already done that with Sydney. We did that with her in what was it, part 5? So let's not use the Tam and
3 into 5 kind of, because they both kind of did that a little bit.
It's played out. Let's not use the in hiding approach. And I still want us to address Tam and Sarah. What I don't want from Scream 7 is I don't want us to go into Scream 7 and pretend like Chad, Mindy, Tam, and Sarah did not exist. Let's not do that. So we kill off Chad and Mindy early on in the opening scene. We also discover that Tam and Sarah are also already deceased. After that, we are going to have another time jump, and we are going to jump to Gale Weathers, everybody's favorite character. Gale is going to be back in Woodsboro. She is going to be there on a tour for her latest book. Of course, she would stop at Woodsboro for a book tour because, well, that's where everything started. So it makes sense that she would be back there. Now, keep in mind, considering that we've already had one opening kill, no one is going to expect that Gale Weathers is going to be in danger next, right? Well, you're wrong, because Gale Weathers is going to die next. Which I think kind of serves as what you were talking about with the Gale and Dewey on the phone thing, with your idea that you had for the next one. Because if you're watching it and you just see Chad and Mindy get killed, and then you hear that Tam and Sarah are already dead, then Sam and Tara, I'm sorry, I've been calling her Sam and Sarah. Sam and Tara are already dead, then you're not going to expect Gale. Well, Gale is going to be killed in Woodsboro after that. I say this
I just thought of an image. I just thought of an image for you. Okay. The knife.
Okay,
she has her book. She has her book trying to defend herself, and she holds up her book to kind of stop the knife, but the knife goes through it, and she's stabbed in the chest with her book open across her chest.
It's a great shot. I like it.
So when they find her, like, she's laying there with her book, and it's like her book is pinned to her through the knife. Like, it's kind of
have Ghostface.
I don't know.
Over the book.
It just kind of, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of this, like, because you got to have some sort of meta to it, but whatever.
The reason, I have two reasons why you kill Gale. Reason number one is it's her time to go. I know that a lot of people like her, and that, we love Courtney Cox, we love Gale, but it's time for her to go. She's honestly outlived her time in the Scream franchise to me. Reason number two, which actually trumps reason number one, is, realistically speaking, I think that Gale's death is the only thing that would bring Sydney out of hiding. The only thing, because now she is the only one left of the original trio still alive. I don't think there's any other reason why Sydney could be lured out. So, moving on. Kirby is going to be the one that informs Sydney of Gale's death, which then brings Sydney, Mark, and their children, who were, because of the time jumps, and then Chad and Mindy in their final year of school. So essentially, Scream 7 is going to be set several years after the events of Scream 6. They return to Woodsboro. Kirby has been working on trying to find out what's going on. She's the one with her FBI background and all that to put together the clues of who this person or persons are. And we also are going to be introduced to a new group of characters. So we're going to have Kirby, we're going to have Gale, we're going to have Mark, we're going to have their kids, who are, I'm going to give them teenage age, and throw in some more high school students. Let's bring back Woodsboro High. Everybody liked Woodsboro High. The killer or killers is going to be someone that wants to finally put an end to every.
Oh snap! That was drama. That was drama. That was some drama. I don't know. You were like, the killers would be finally someone who puts an end to, and then you dropped out. Like, it was like perfectly, like, you. I was like, dang, did he time that? Like, did he do it on purpose?
Okay, so it originally intended for them to be killed. So they are literally picking up where it all began in Scream 1, because they want to put an end to it. So everyone is dead. The only people that we have left alive now that have survived the films are going to be Gale, Mark, and Kirby at this point. And they are literally, there's no motive. There's nothing other than that alone. I don't want to overcomplicate it or anything like that. With the movies made me do it, or revenge or anything like that. It's just simple, straight up. I want to finish what was started, and to do this, Gail had to die, which she's going to already be dead, and Kirby, Mark, Sydney, and even Sydney and Mark's children have to die. Um, as far as the tone of the film goes, I would really like to see us get back to the tone of the second Scream, because I really liked the tone. I'm going to get away from the pitch here momentarily.
You're good.
Just for a moment. I thought that the tone of the second film was the best out of all of them.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to why sometimes that becomes my favorite over the first movie, is because there's a little bit more playfulness in it, even though that we're under a lot of like stress and fear.
Yes. I really liked the tone of it all. It just worked really well. I like Sydney's roommate in the second one, so let's bring a character like that back in. And in terms of Kirby's character in the seventh one, I want to get Kirby back to the character that she was in 4. I'm not really sure. Again, I'm going to leave the pitch for a second. I'm not sure what they were trying to do with Kirby's character in the 6th one, but that wasn't Kirby. I don't know who that was.
I feel like they were trying to feel like this is, if we had, okay, I'm going to chime in. If we had gotten more with her to where we saw like the trauma that she went through, that she had built like a cocoon around herself, because we've seen Sydney evolve with each film, is where the trauma that she experiences, what that does to her as a person. And 4 was supposed to be kind of her coming out of that trauma and overcoming things, but we never got that with Kirby. So I feel like in 6, kind of Kirby's a little bit different because we haven't got to have this journey with her. We haven't seen what she's been through as a survivor or anything. So there's the scene where it's the game recognizes game scene with Mindy, where I feel like that's Kirby coming out of her shell back to who she was. So
yeah, that was one of my favorite scenes with Kirby, because we actually got to see Kirby be Kirby. But that's what the motive is the killer or killers just wants to put an end to everything. In terms of who is left alive, I think Sydney and Kirby have to live. I don't think you kill off Sydney for the sake of what happens if we want to make another one. I don't think you kill off Kirby, because I think that if you do so, you're going to anger the mobs. Because I know I, for one, was devastated at the end of 4 when that happened to Kirby, and I was so excited when she was coming back. But Mark is expendable, actually.
I'm just glad that he's still included. That's all I'm saying.
I'm glad that he's included. Yeah, definitely have to include him. But I think that killing off Mark in the 7th one, on top of everything else that Sydney has been through, and on top of this pitch that I've given, like her kids are in danger, Gail has been killed, everyone else has been killed, now her kids are being threatened, Mark is now killed. That's just going to drive her to become a different Sydney. And just really put an end to this for what she thinks is once and for all.
Well, is that it? Are you done?
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Well, what's funny is you were very similar in my line of thinking. Now,
cool.
A few episodes ago, I have to repost it. I think it was like last year before, I did do a pitch for Scream 7 that's completely now null and void, because it dealt with my opening kill was going to involve I can't remember his name, Josh Segarra's character dying, and it was going to involve Sam kind of losing her mind and thinking she's the killer and stuff, but that doesn't count anymore. So I'm very similar with you, but my inspiration for this film is going to be such. My opening, I'm going to borrow from Star Wars. What's that mean, Tyler? Well, my opening scenes are going to be like, in Star Wars, when you get to the end, there's always the land battle, the lightsaber battle, and the space battle. Unless you're Revenge of the Sith, then it's lightsaber and lightsaber. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have 2 opening scenes cut together. you're going to have Gale being hunted by a killer and Sydney and Mark hunted by a killer. Kind of like dueling opening scenes. Gale will die, as will Mark. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Sydney then takes her girls, and Sydney, the killer gets away. Okay. Sydney takes her daughters and tries to go into hiding, contacts Kirby. Kirby will be here as like the lead detective or FBI agent, investigator heading this up. I will have a little kind of like you were saying. Shortly later, we'll have a conversation where they talk about though Kirby will reach out to Chad and Mindy, and there'll be dialogue about Sam and Tara having died before. I want it to be a death. Like, I wish it could be a death that we could solidify. So it's never open, like, oh, they faked their death, like car accident or whatever. But it'll be something, I think, a car accident kind of reference to like some of the stuff from Halloween series, I think it's fitting for their characters. But I want, because they're not coming back, but then we will have a scene that Chad and Mindy get killed shortly after hanging up the phone with Kirby. And in this, what I want is I want to ramp up the tension. I want to put stakes back in. I want to put fear back in you. I want to bring back the idea nobody's safe. I'm going to have new characters because, of course, we have to have some new characters. But I also think it'd be very interesting to have a scene where Ghostface is in front of some people and chooses not to kill them. And the other movie I'm going to borrow for, and this is kind of, I've read about the Kevin Williamson Scream 3. I've read about Kevin Williamson's idea for Scream 5 and 6. And so I don't want to say I'm cherry picking, but I am taking certain context ideas I thought and reworking them. But my idea is kind of like the Orient Express. It's a group of people. It's people who have lived in Woodsboro their whole life who are sick of this, who are so torn up because this is what their town has become. And like you said, they want it to end. So they're trying to kill all the survivors. So there won't be anything to continue. Mm-hmm. There won't be somebody who will pick up. So I want this tension of it's almost like the town is the killer. And I was thinking about characters. I was like, one of the kids that Principal Henry Winkler brings into the office that threatens with the scissors, I'd bring that actor back. He's now the principal of he grew up. The one who's like, he grew up to be the principal, and it kind of, when things happened in the first film, it forced him to grow up. And he is one of the people, who's involved. Try to find these actors and these characters that were like in the background of the first Scream and the fourth Scream and pull them to the front. And they're now like the mayor, the principal, local leadership. And they're the ones that are like, this has destroyed our town. It's always somebody coming. So they're starting to try to almost like a genocide. And you have multiple killers, and that's why they're getting around. And even Kirby can't piece it together because there's too many variables that aren't lining up. They can't track down the killer because there's so many, they can't figure out who it is. And I would kill off Sydney at the end. I would make this where the killer kind of gets away with it. Because one, it would be shocking if you can make it work narratively. You can't just keep bringing Nev back. And would I kill Kirby? That's my big question. I don't know. But that is kind of where my mind's at, is because I don't like loose ends. I want the story, this complete, but this kind of idea. And there was another thought that I had. Okay. And this I've talked about, but the idea, okay, if Roman is the director, and he says, I'm a director, I direct. I thought about creating a character who's the producer. Somebody who's pulling the strings from behind this, much like Star Wars, The Phantom Menace, right? Palpatine, who needs to restart the Stab series, or even like not the Stab series, it's kind of been working some people and pushing people in the town into things. So, but I just kind of like the idea that people are so upset that they want it to end that they're going to make the ending. Kind of like the idea of you become what you hate. You obsess over something, you become what you hate. And that's what the town has kind of started to do. So, that's where my pitch is right now with, where we are with Scream 7. So that if you do want to make another one down the line, you can either have a fresh start completely, or I would let Sydney's kids live. They'd be the ones that live. So you could pick those up. They go into, witness protection, change their names, move out, and kind of disappear and let them kind of go off and have the happy-ish ending. But also, like, once again, we're back to generational trauma. Sydney's mom did things that forced trauma on Sydney. Now Sydney's trying to survive, but it's trickling down to her children. So that's my idea.
Your idea is actually your opening with the split kills, the dual kills happening the situation simultaneously is actually what my opening was originally before I changed it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
So while you were saying that, I was like, that's wild. I was like, because originally I had it was still Chad and Mindy and Gail, but I had it happening simultaneously.
We got to do something to shake it up. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. And yours definitely shakes it up, 100%, because you don't expect it. Like, especially having Mark killed, right there. But that's why I wanted to kill Gail, but have it be after Chad and Mindy, just to kind of throw people off. That was my reasoning behind that. If my pitch would be, I would pitch this, is if you truly wanted this to end. However, I would have to say, if without a shadow of a doubt, that you want this franchise to end at 7, then yes, let's kill Sydney. 100%. I'm on board with that. However, I'm still actually on board with you saying to kill her. Just because, like you said, Nev, what's she going to be? Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it, that was the one thing about 6 is they showed that they could continue on with a story without Sydney. And there's logical reasons for 2, 3, and 4. And even 5, they find a way to make it that she's back. But 6 wasn't about her. And if 7's going to be back about her, let's make it worth it being about her. My last thought here.
What do you think? Real quick, I know there's been some talk, and I thought about this. I thought about throwing this character into my pitch, and then we'll move on to your last thought. Angelina from Scream 3.
See, she was the rumored, like, supposed to be the third killer, or the second killer of Scream 3. It was supposed to be her and Roman together. And, I've watched Scream 3. Go back to how she dies. It's kind of off screen. It's kind of weird. If you made a twist where she comes back and she's like the producer character, I was kind of talking about.
Yeah.
That would work for me. Like, if she's the killer that got away because everyone thought she died, and she, changed her name or whatever, I'm okay with. I thought that could be something really unique to kind of come back and tie up that loose end. But go back and watch the scenes in Scream 3. It is kind of weird because it is like they're trying to kill her so that she could come back as a killer, but then they just made Roman the killer alone. There is definitely some stuff that could be there. Now, my last question: did you ever watch the TV series?
So I did watch the TV series, and surprisingly, I actually enjoyed seasons 1 and 2. I couldn't even get past the first episode of the season 3, but I enjoyed the first 2 seasons. I really did.
So season 1 and 2, I started season 1, but to me it wasn't Scream. It just felt like it was a murder mystery. So, like, I stopped because I was mad that they even used the name Scream. because I'm like, and then I watched season 3 because they went back to their real face
Yeah,
mask, and I watched it, and my thoughts is, one, it shows why as a series it doesn't work. Like you need that short time span, because then the cop should be able to kind of start to piece stuff together. Two, I think if there's a crafty editor out there, they could edit season 3 into maybe like an hour, 2 hour movie or something, like a hour and a half, 2 hour movie, and make something really good. It gets a little convoluted at points. Um, but yeah, it's just the first season, 2 seasons. If I went back and tried to watch it and just said to myself, this isn't Scream, but just think of it something else, I think I might like it.
that's what I did. That's what I had to do. Is I had to separate Scream the movies from the series and just sit down and enjoy it as a standalone show that had just used the name. And I think that's probably why I enjoyed it. I did hear rumors that they're going to come back with another season of the TV show. I'm not sure if that's true or not.
I
It's
just
the
think just make a murder mystery like it. Like don't call it that. Like I know you're trying to sell an IP, but there's certain things to the Scream. Like the first seasons didn't have like the meta commentary about the movies. Like we need that's what made Scream great, was like it was talking about what horror was at the time. It was self-referential. And they try to do that in the new films about how there's just so much out there. But that's another conversation. I'm trying to keep this to about an hour. We're at our mark. Yeah. So, Corey, what you got that you want to plug people to look out for? You talked about your 2 films. Anything else? Any place online that people can find you?
I am in the process of having a website built right now with some of my work that people can check out. I was told by a mentor who used to be one of my screenwriting instructors. Well, Tyler's also, Julie, has been mentoring me throughout the process since I graduated. And she told me to hold off on creating a website right now. Anyways, Clara's Box was a short film. It was a psychological thriller. Like I said, it hit the festival circuit in California this year. It's my very first produced work. It was nominated for Best Short Thriller at the Los Angeles Film Festival. Clara's Gambit is the feature that is spun off from that I wrote, that is also going to be an indie film that is in the hands of indie producers right now. Unseen Captivity is another psychological thriller that is being worked on. I have a plot that is in the hands of HBO right now, which I cannot talk about, unfortunately.
Nice.
So as soon as I hear something from that, yes or no, then Tyler would actually be the first person to hear about that.
Awesome. It's exciting, man. Very exciting for you. Happy for you.
It's been a whirlwind year of writing. Well, ever since I graduated, really, I haven't given up. It's hard juggling a regular job and then following your screenwriting passion. So it's fun though. I thoroughly enjoy it though.
Well, I enjoyed you here. I will definitely have you back as we kind of do this. Like I said, to anyone listening, comment below and let us know which pitch or what ideas you like. So we'll catch you.
Yeah, give ideas for future pitches as well.
Yeah.
Prices out there. I have my own that I could definitely dive into, but I'll talk with Tyler about a follow up one day.
Yeah. All right, everybody, let us know, and we'll see you at the movies.